Here is our modern fan. This is a 2018 Fine Elements 10-inch copper oscillating desk fan. And we'll be comparing it to this is our vintage fan. This is a 1960s 10-inch oscillating desk fan, model 1265R. And today we are going to be comparing the two to truly see which is better. Will it be a more middle end modern desk fan, or a very low end vintage fan? The modern fan will have the advantage in this case because it's not not the lowest end fan you can get today, whereas the vintage fan, the Zero, was like the lowest end, the cheapest fan at the time. So a little bit of a disadvantage there. Let's begin. Here's our modern fan. .730 kilograms. How about that? 2.045 kilograms. The vintage one is lighter. I was not expecting that actually. Here are our two fans. Let's take a look at their cord length. Well, how about that? The modern one is just barely longer. I'm not counting the adapter because that thing is ridiculous. I'm going based off its Zero's plug. The information tag on the Zero is on the badge, right there. Where on the modern Fine Elements, it's right there. In terms of which one's better, I might feel a bit biased, but I'll probably say the vintage one is in a better place. Having it on the badges, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, because if you lose a badge, you're screwed. But I just feel like underneath the motor housing is just not a great place to put it. I really dislike it when manufacturers put it down there. I really think it's dumb. Neither of the way hold on is the best here. Underneath the base, I think it's just, there's a reason most manufacturers use underneath the base. It's just better. If we take a look underneath, 6 rubber feet on the modern one. Take a look underneath. 3 rubber feet, and as well a wall mounting feature. Wall mounting one gives the base design a point to a 0, because wall mounting, not something everyone does, but it's very convenient. In terms of the grille, we have an open space basic grille, very open. Look how open that is. Whereas on this one, we have a very restrictive grille. Now, for which grille I prefer, I do prefer the more open grills because they're less child safe, as you can touch the blades while they run, but they don't restrict airflow. In terms of tilt adjustments, you adjust this knob right here to tilt the fan down or up. Whereas on the vintage one, you adjust this knob to adjust the head up or down. And yes, it goes down very little because how far it goes down is affected by its grille. The grille prevents it from going down any further. I will give the point here to the vintage Zero for having more tilt adjustment, having a wider angle. But both of them are terrible for tilting down. This is the motor housing design of these two fans. They're actually very similar, with the seam that separates the two parts being right around there. That's very similar. In terms of disassembly of both of them, they're both quite tedious, if I'm being honest. And actually for both of them, the toughest part was disassembly of the fan. For both of them. First one, you've got to get in that screw, but the main issue comes down with right underneath there, you've got to clip it in there. This one, it just, I don't know what it is, it's just a right pain to get on. Held on with a triangle head, that's held on with a single flat head. But in terms of disassembly, for zero, I found easier. Oh yeah, something I should also mention before I forget. If we take a look at the speeds, we have 1, 2, 3. 3-speed switch on this fan without oscillation on. You engage and disengage. On the vintage fan, you may notice there's no switch. That's because there isn't any switch. It's a plug in and go 1-speed fan. And to adjust the oscillation, you tighten this knob. And then if you want to disengage it, you just loosen it to like this level loose. That's how the oscillation works on this thing. And that's also a bit of an odd dilemma. The more speeds in the switch is more convenient, much more convenient than a single speed plug in and go fan. But with a single speed plug in and go fan, much easier to deal with the wiring than with this one, if there's a wiring problem. For the speeds, this one gets an additional point. But because I bring it up the wiring, this one gets a point for being better on the wiring. Disassembly of cleaning and oiling. So for disassembling a fan to clean, which did I find easier? For the cleaning phase, it really is just removing the blades, the grill, and the back of the motor housing and cleaning it there. That's what I did. From my experience, the zero was just slightly easier. And as well for oiling, the zero is a lot easier as the oil wick is. Let's see if we can showcase you. There you go. Big oil port right out in the open for the oil wick right there. And even though the back bearing does not have an oil wick, but once you take off this motor housing, the oil wick's just right there in the open, ready for oiling, which is very convenient, very easy. On this fan, like a traditional modern fan, you need to take the whole motor apart to access the oil wicks, which is incredibly annoying. So in terms of disassembly for cleaning and oiling, this gets a point for both of those categories. In terms of the overall build quality, I did test it a lot off camera because I just forgot to film it. The Zero only slightly outdoes the modern fan. Only slightly. That's another point for the Zero. How about that? And next up, blade pitch. This is the pitch on the modern fan. This is the pitch on the vintage fan. The Zero has much more pitch, so I guess another point for that. Here's the modern fan on low. Medium. High. Here's off. Here's low with oscillation. medium, high. Off. Here is the vintage fan on, well, on. Here's off. Now here is the vintage fan with oscillation on. Now we're going to compare the airflow and noise level of these two fans. I have the modern one set to high for the fairest comparison, basically. Let's turn them on, put them both on by the plug. Unfortunately, this one, the headlights move, so a bit shaky, but oh well. With that conclusion, the Zero moves way more air than the modern fan, like it's way stronger, but it's also way louder. So 1 point to each one, it looks like. Let's turn them off. This is only for a bit of fun. The spin down will not be rated for this. There you go. I forgot to mention earlier, but I forgot to compare the oscillation. We got to see them both in action. And honestly, out of the two, I think the modern one has the better oscillation. Neither of them have particularly good oscillation mechanisms, neither of them do. The modern ones ain't great, but the vintage one is well known for having a terrible oscillation that breaks all the time. Luckily, on this particular example, the oscillation is fine. It just needs a bit of re-greasing and it's good to go. But for a lot of them, yeah. So I'll give the point to the modern fan on this. you know, so I don't, I forgot too earlier. Well done. Oh, I should also mention, in terms of reliability, neither of them are that great. Both of them have reliability issues. These fans can typically just die for no reason, and these ones, the bearings can go bad pretty quickly. Although from what I know, with these, it was more the 8-inch ones that suffered worse than the larger ones. The larger ones didn't suffer as badly, so there's that. And for these, all the models are susceptible to just dying for no reason. Seems to be a common trend, that they die for no reason. These ones just die from doing absolutely nothing. These ones die more often from being used, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So in terms of reliability, I'm not sure, but I would give it to the vintage one, only because they all can have problems. Like, they all seem to do have bearing problems, yes, but it's nowhere near as bad on the larger ones compared to the 8-inch models. Whereas like these, they're all just susceptible to just dying. They'll just die from being sat around in storage. These ones are much less likely to die from being sat around in storage. These are very common to find today. Well, they both are, but you get what I mean as well. If I had to pick which one I preferred more, this one. I prefer the vintage fan more. I mean, I myself prefer vintage fans in general because most of the time they are higher quality. But I thought I'd give modern fans a better shot in this one by choosing like one of the worst quality vintage fans you can get. One of them. I'm still, like, regardless of the problems these fans have, I'm still very glad I picked one up because these were never really sold over here. They're really common in North America, but outside of that, you don't really see them much. I think they're pretty cool. They're also anti-clockwise spinning, but that doesn't really affect much, just like I want to point out. But yeah, I mean, let me know which one you guys prefer, if you prefer a more modern one or this vintage one. I know which one I think is better overall. Even the lower quality vintage one I think is better. I do. But not by much. It is better than the modern one, but not by a huge amount. There's not like a massive difference. But yes, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and see ya!